He thought prison was the worst thing that could happen to him, until he saw her on her knees in the warden's office. The woman he married, the woman he waited for, the woman who promised to stay loyal. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a massacre. 2 people dead, blood on the concrete, and 1 broken man in handcuffs. Again. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's dive in. His name was Terrence Holloway, 43 years old, doing time at Millstone Correctional for armed robbery. He wasn't a saint, but inside those walls he was calm, kept to himself, stayed out of trouble. He followed the rules, did his job in the laundry room, and every Friday without fail she came to visit. Her name was Rochelle. They met back in high school. She stuck by him through everything: court dates, sentencing, transfers. Even when his own family stopped showing up, she never missed a visit. To the guards and other inmates, they were that couple, the loyal kind. Terrence once told his cellmate that Rochelle was the only reason he still had hope. But hope can blind you. And Terrence had no idea what was building behind those visits. No idea that loyalty had a breaking point. No idea that the one person he trusted most was about to shatter everything. It started with small changes. Rochelle stopped staying as long during visits. She'd rush out after 20 minutes. Her calls became shorter. Sometimes, she wouldn't call at all. Terrence noticed. He asked her if something was wrong. She'd smile, shake her head, and say, "I'm just tired, baby. Work's been crazy." But inside, Terrence felt it. Something was slipping. Then one day, a guard passed him a note. No name, no signature, just 5 words, written in shaky handwriting. "Watch who she talks to." Terrence couldn't sleep that night. He played it over and over in his mind. The next visitation, Rochelle came in wearing perfume, lipstick. She was laughing at something one of the guards said before she even reached the glass. Something in Terrence snapped. Not rage, not yet, but the kind of silence that comes before a storm. He asked to change his job assignment. Got a spot sweeping the hallway near administration. 2 weeks later, he saw it. He was passing the warden's office when he heard voices, then a low sound. Familiar, intimate. The door wasn't fully closed, and when he looked through the gap, he froze. Rochelle was on her knees. The warden stood above her, hand on her head. Terrence didn't move, didn't breathe. He stood there for 20 seconds, maybe more, burned the image into his mind. Then he turned, walked back to his cell, and for 3 days, he didn't speak to anyone. But something inside him was already moving. Something quiet, focused, final. 3 days passed. Terrence went about his routine like nothing happened. A few guards noticed he was quieter than usual. One said he looked like a man who'd already made peace with something. On Friday, Rochelle came again. Same smile, same perfume. Terrence sat across the glass, stared at her, and said only one thing: "Don't come back." She tried to speak. He hung up the phone, got up, walked away. That night, just before lights out, Terrence slipped out of his cell. No one noticed. He'd been planning, studying guard rotations, hallway cameras, weak spots. He waited outside the warden's office. The lights were off, but he knew the schedule. The warden stayed late most Fridays. At 9:47 p.m., the door opened. The warden stepped out holding papers. Didn't even see it coming. Terrence struck fast, silent, precise. One blow to the throat, another to the head. The warden collapsed. Then Terrence dragged the body back into the office and waited. At 10:16 p.m., Rochelle arrived. She thought she'd been called for a late meeting. The door was open. She walked in. She didn't even scream, just gasped. Terrence closed the door behind her. They spoke, quietly, for nearly 4 minutes. No one knows exactly what was said. But when guards finally broke in, both Rochelle and the warden were gone, and Terrence was sitting in the chair, covered in red. He didn't run. He didn't resist. He just looked up and said, "It's done." Millstone Correctional went into immediate lockdown. Sirens blared across the compound. Cell checks. Head counts. Every hallway swept. The warden's body was found first, inside his own office, barely recognizable. The desk overturned, broken glass everywhere. Rochelle's body was found 20 minutes later, in a janitor's closet, covered with a prison-issued blanket. There were no cameras in that area. The only working footage showed Terrence walking calmly through the corridor, alone. He never tried to hide. In the interrogation room, he said almost nothing. When asked why he did it, he stared at the table for a long time, then whispered, "You saw what I saw. You'd do the same." The investigators started digging, and what they found changed the entire case. First, there were text messages on Rochelle's phone, late-night conversations with the warden going back months. Messages like, "I'll be there Friday, same time." He doesn't suspect a thing. Then came the photos. Security stills from a blind hallway corner. The two of them. Intimate. There were even rumors that Rochelle had asked the warden for help moving Terrence to another facility, to get him out of the way. It wasn't just betrayal. It was planned, calculated, hidden in plain sight. The more they uncovered, the more divided the prison staff became. Some said Terrence was a cold-blooded killer. Others said they would have done the same. The case went beyond the prison walls. Headlines ran with it for weeks, but no one had the full truth. Except Terrence. And he wasn't talking anymore. The trial began 6 months later. Terrence entered the courtroom in shackles, head held low. His lawyer spoke for him. He never took the stand, never looked at the photos, never reacted to the testimonies. The prosecution painted him as a violent man who couldn't handle rejection. They showed the crime scene, the blood, the bodies. They called it revenge. But the defense told a different story. They talked about love, about betrayal, about a man who gave everything to someone who took it all and threw it away. They showed the messages between Rochelle and the warden, the requests to move Terrence, the notes exchanged behind the inmate's back. The jury listened in silence. Outside the courthouse, the story was everywhere. News vans lined the street. Opinion pieces flooded the internet. Some people called Terrence a monster. Others called him a broken man pushed too far. One reporter said, "It wasn't just two people who died. It was a future, a life, a belief in loyalty that didn't survive the system." A former inmate wrote online, "This wasn't just about cheating. It was about trust being killed in the only place he still had it." Rochelle's family sat in the front row. They never spoke to the press. Terrence's mother came once. She didn't return after the first day. When the verdict came down, there were no outbursts, no reactions, just silence. The kind of silence that follows something irreversible. The courtroom was packed the day of sentencing. Terrence stood without emotion as the judge read the decision. 2 consecutive life sentences. No chance of parole. The gavel dropped. It was over. He didn't flinch, didn't look back, didn't say a word. He was led out in silence, eyes fixed straight ahead. One guard said it felt like walking a ghost. Back at Millstone, Terrence was placed in solitary, 23 hours a day, 1 hour outside, alone. No more visits, no more phone calls. His cell was bare, just a bed, a toilet, and a photo. A worn picture of him and Rochelle, taken years ago, smiling, young. He never tore it up, never threw it away. He just stared at it sometimes, like a man trying to remember where it all changed. When asked later if he regretted it, he gave the same answer every time. "I did what I had to do." No emotion, no rage, just that one sentence. And then silence. Terrence Holloway wasn't born a killer. He grew up in a rough part of Detroit, oldest of 4, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs and still came home exhausted. He learned early that trust was earned slowly and lost fast. By 17, he'd already been arrested twice, petty theft, breaking and entering. But he wasn't reckless. He was quiet, calculated, always watching. He met Rochelle when he was 19. She was everything he wasn't, hopeful, soft-spoken, full of dreams. She believed in him when no one else did. That belief became his anchor. Even when he messed up, even when prison came, she stayed. And because she stayed, he kept going. But people aren't built to handle isolation forever. Inside that cell, years became a blur. The visits were all he had. So when that trust cracked, it didn't just break his heart, it erased his reason. Psychologists who later studied the case called it a complete emotional collapse. Not temporary insanity, not rage, just a man who watched the only light in his world go dark. One expert said, "You take a man's freedom, he adjusts. You take his hope, he becomes dangerous." And that's exactly what happened. Today, Terrence Holloway sits in a maximum security facility in upstate New York. He's been there almost 8 years now. No major incidents, no fights, no violations. The guards say he barely speaks, reads old books, follows a strict routine, same breakfast, same exercises, same hour outside. He doesn't write letters, no visitors. Rochelle's family never reached out. His own stopped calling after the 2nd year. To most people, he's just another lifer, one more name in the system. But a few still remember. The ones who worked the case, the ones who saw the photos. They say there was something different about him. Not the crime, not the silence, the stillness. Like a man who had already accepted the end, long before it ever came. And in that cell, with no more noise, no more lies, no more hope, Terrence finally got what he wanted. Peace. The kind of peace that comes after you've lost everything. Some stories stay with us not because of how they ended, but because of what they revealed. Terrence Holloway's case wasn't just about murder. It was about what happens when a man has nothing left to hold on to. When the last person he trusts becomes the reason he breaks. In the outside world, betrayal hurts. Inside prison walls, it's fatal. The system didn't create what happened, but it didn't stop it either. It gave a man just enough hope to keep breathing, and just enough silence to let everything rot underneath. There are no heroes in this story, no clean sides. Only a man, a woman, and a choice that shattered them both. And maybe that's the part people struggle with most. How easily love can turn into something else. Something cold. Something permanent. Some say Terrence Holloway was a monster. Others say he was just a man pushed past the point of return. But what do you think? Was it murder, or was it something deeper? Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more stories like this, and let us know where you're watching from. This is Dark Motives, real stories, real consequences. Until next time, stay sharp.